Welcome, everyone. This election season, the North Pacific's Ministry of Radio is sponsoring a series of voice chat and text-based town halls for each candidate. We hope this event is informative, and we encourage you to participate by asking questions in the chat. And now, let's get started. Welcome, Cretox.
Hello, I'm pleased to be here.
First and foremost, can you give us a brief history of your time in the North Pacific, including each of the positions you formerly held in our regional government?
Oh boy. Okay, so I joined May 2020, that's last year. I've been in the North Pacific for nearly a year now. In that time, I quickly joined the region's government and rose through the ranks to become Deputy WA Minister, Deputy Speaker of the Regional Assembly, Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, before serving as Deputy Minister of, or before serving as Minister of World Assembly Affairs from September until December 2020. I have also served as a senior WA consultant for the Ministry of WA Affairs, as an election commissioner, and more recently as a security counselor and as vice delegate. I currently serve as vice delegate, security counselor, and election commissioner. And senior WA consultant, I guess.
What do you feel were your major achievements in your prior term as the vice delegate? Well, how will you continue to make progress?
I have to say that the prior term has exceeded my expectations for what I thought I could do going into it. When McMaster Donia first gave me the idea of running for vice delegate, I was honestly surprised. I didn't think I would be suited for the position, and I didn't quite know what I would achieve in the position. However, this term has gone incredibly well. The major projects that I've tackled with the assistance of the Security Council this term have included declassification, the usual vote, citizenship applications, etc., updates to the line of succession and to the standing nominations, as well as various projects that I've introduced, including vice delegate mentoring, an ongoing program to mentor new citizenship applicants who pass the vice delegate's check, an endotarting event which is ready to be released likely during the transition period next term for the delegate, a handbook for security counselor members which is in progress, and endotarting guide which is in progress. So overall there has been a lot going on, and I'm grateful for everyone who's assisted me on the Security Council and outside of the Security Council.
Why did you decide to run for re-election for the vice delegacy, and what do you think you bring to the office?
I've decided to run for vice delegate for a second term because I believe that I'm the best person to build on the foundation that I've erected this prior term. And I believe that a second term with me as vice delegate will bring a natural extension of the work that I've done this term, whether it be ongoing work such as declassification, whether it be the core competencies of the office such as citizenship checks and monitoring for security threats, or whether it be new projects which I've outlined in my platform, including events, RMB trivia, and completing the guides that I've begun this term.
Can you give a brief summary of the core points of your campaign? What sets your campaign apart from the other campaign?
Oh boy, I'm summarizing my campaign again. So currently, and this will likely stay until he possibly decides to withdraw or if he continues, but currently this is a two-candidate race for vice delegate with me against Rom, who is a challenger to the incumbent being me. I believe that my campaign articulates what I've achieved in the past term as vice delegate, and I believe that my performance in the prior term speaks for itself when it comes to what I offer the region should they elect me to stay in the office for another term.
Think of the current performance of the Security Council. What areas, if any, do you think should be improved or emphasized upon?
Oh my, this is the same question Prater asked me in my campaign thread. So the two major areas I think that the Security Council could improve on are, number one, simply being well-rounded in terms of areas of competence and areas of activity. The Security Council's primary role is to ensure the region's security and to safeguard the region's democracy. In order to do this, each security counselor should be seen by the region as a whole as a leading figure who can take charge during a crisis. The vast majority of the Security Council has served as vice delegate, delegate, or even both, and have made a name for themselves in the region's government. However, I believe that the competencies of the Security Council can and should be extended to other equally valid parts of TNP's community. This includes the regional message board, this includes the TNP roleplay community, and I have events in mind such as RMB trivia and others to help the region get to know the Security Council better, at least the parts of the region that aren't already familiar with what the Security Council does. And I plan on releasing the Security Council handbook early next term in an effort to allow especially new members of the region to inform themselves as to the Security Council's role and how to get on it, should they choose to inform themselves. The second weakness I see in the Security Council currently is simply maintaining up-to-date knowledge as to ongoings in not so much TNP, but in other regions, especially allied ones. Oftentimes people do apply to the Security Council when they feel they've reached a lull in their career in TNP's politics, or when they feel that they're at the end of their government careers in the North Pacific. However, I believe that it's essential that every Security Counselor remains informed as to what's going on in our allies, in our allied regions, and what's going on in the nation-states community as a whole. I think that there are plenty of tools for security counselors to inform themselves, and I think it's just a matter of maintaining consistent internal communication and using available resources, such as the various Discord servers for upper regions and for the gameplay community, and especially the foreign affairs reports, which were introduced this term. Those are great for maintaining a cursory knowledge of what's going on in our embassy regions.
How quickly do you believe you can execute on your campaign goals?
So that's a difficult question to answer. On the one hand, I've included a wide variety of objectives in my campaign that could conceivably carry me through the entire term in terms of work to do. I've included a balance of short-term objectives, which include core work, ongoing work, and infrastructure improvements, such as to the World Assembly Development Program WADP spreadsheet that I've outlined in my platform, ongoing work such as declassification and the guides and other materials that I've begun work on this term. Those could easily be completed in the short term. However, there are also more ambitious projects that I've outlined in my platform, such as the concept of an executive staffing organ under the vice delegate, which will assist with clerical tasks, with compiling lists of cards to be gifted as part of the WADP, and with generally interfacing with the executive staff as to matters concerning the vice delegate. Think more deputy speakers and less another executive staff. That will be kind of redundant. This is an ambitious project. It might not even be completed in the next term, but it is something that I will be working on. So I've made sure that I will be nice and busy and have plenty of deliverables to present to the region throughout the entirety of the next 4 months.
Should foreign voices be considered when evaluating the security risk of a nation applying for citizenship?
No, absolutely. You know, when someone applies for citizenship, oftentimes the reason they may be considered a security risk is specifically due to their activity in foreign regions, especially allied regions. If someone has outed themselves as a security risk in one of our allied regions, then that obviously casts their potential citizenship application in the North Pacific in a negative light. If there has been a security crisis in one of our allied regions, the Security Council will know about it extremely quickly, and we'll discuss this internally. If a citizenship applicant is kind of questionable, the first thing I usually do is I reach out to relevant figures in regions where behavior is questionable to get a better image of whether a certain applicant is a clear risk, what kind of a danger they pose, and whether it's safe to admit them. This can include regional leaders, this can include regional staffers who moderate the regional message board. Typically, what comes up as questionable is regional message board activity and potential bans or moderation action there.
Are you prepared to step up and act as delegate should that be needed?
Again, absolutely. One of the core roles of the vice delegate is maintaining an active presence within the executive staff and being able to take over for the delegate in the event of a crisis. The Security Council as a whole, in fact, is also responsible for being able to step in and maintain the integrity of the region and its institutions in the event of a delegacy crisis. For the past term, I've been working closely with the executive government. I've maintained an active presence in every one of the ministries. I've been working on various projects within the executive government, even when they're not directly related to my role as vice delegate. And of course, I've been maintaining active voting on all WA proposals and keeping my endorsement counts up. So should there be a delegate crisis, especially during the transition that'll inevitably take place early next term, I will be well equipped both in terms of experience and in terms of my endorsements and influence to stabilize things should it be necessary.
What constitutes a risk to democracy or to our community in the North Pacific, and how should that apply to the evaluation of citizenship applicants?
So there are a few things to consider here. Number one, is there an intention to destabilize the region? Number two is, does this person have the means to destabilize the region? Number three, do they present a threat to the region's community beyond simply our in-game institutions such as the delegate seat? And number four, have they reformed in any way from prior activities? But this is more of a gray area. When it comes to evaluating someone who's a potential security threat, yes, maybe they post stupid stuff on the regional message board that usually results in administrative action. I've seen this many times during the past term. But these people simply may be childish, may be stupid, but they usually do not have the means or the actual intention to coup the region or to simply destabilize the region even. So when it comes to citizenship applications, my policy for the past term has been I'll discuss it internally, I'll bring up any potential issues, I'll sanction feedback from the Security Council, I'll listen to that feedback, and what it usually comes down to is either it's more of an administrative case than a security case, or it's simply something to keep an eye on. I haven't rejected a single citizenship application this past term on regional security grounds because the combination of factors necessary for someone to pose a credible security risk simply hasn't been met by any of the applicants this term.
From a citizen's perspective, did you find the weekly security endorsement statistics to be useful? Would there be anything you'd change about it, like tracking additional things or not tracking other things? Would you continue with publishing a weekly check to the public?
You know, I'm really glad that you brought this up because the weekly check is something I've been grappling with all term in terms of how it can be expanded, improved to provide a better snapshot of the Security Council status and the status of the Vice Delegate's office as a whole to the wider region. When it comes to these weekly reports, I've been experimenting with timing, I've been experimenting with content, with formatting, and as I've mentioned in my campaign, I believe that I'm ready to standardize it, especially for future Vice Delegates. I've settled on a format with distinct sections that I believe works, and my intention for the coming term is to post more free-form, flexible in terms of timing, individual reports on the various projects and record-keeping initiatives that the Vice Delegate now oversees, whether it be the WADP announcements thread, or declassification, or lottery announcements, or simply endorsement actions on the part of a Vice Delegate. There is a separate thread for that now. Every Sunday, once a week, I will post a general update with an overview of what the Office and the Security Council have done over the past week, with links to more individualized, more detailed reports. I have also recently started including a new graph in addition to the weekly table outlining Security Council and Vice Delegate endorsements. This is a graph showing the region's aggregate endorsements. I actually had the idea for this when I was working on this endotarding event that will likely launch early next term. that in addition to the performance of the Security Council endorsement-wise and where we're at, it would be useful to the public to see where the region as a whole is at in terms of endorsements, since endorsements are directly correlated to the region's security, and to how we're doing in terms of the WATP and other projects. Every month, at the end of every month, I should say, I intend to publish a bulkier report that contains an overview of what the office has accomplished in the past month in aggregate terms. So this will be a larger report that goes into comprehensive detail on projects, on links, and on our endorsements over the past month. The great thing about endorsement reports and vice delegate reports especially is that accessing them from the form via spreadsheet is incredibly flexible. Therefore, I can create an endorsement report for a week, for a month, even for the entire term. In fact, in my closing address later in the week as a vice delegate this term, I intend to publish a graph showing our endorsements and our influence as a region and how it's progressed throughout the entire term, with labels attached to significant events throughout the term and how they could correlate to our endorsement counts.
Term as vice delegate. Your last term as vice delegate saw the line of succession change up a little bit. Are you pleased with the changes, or will you change them even further?
Well, my simple answer here is going to be that if I think that anything should be changed in terms of the line of succession, I will let the region know about it. Since the line of succession is, by definition, what is activated in the event of a delegate emergency. At this point, I don't believe that the line of succession needs further updating. If the line of succession turns out to need further updating at some point in the coming term, then of course I will work with the Security Council to iron out the details of a potential update, and I'll present it to the Regional Assembly. During this last term, the line of succession was in need of updating due to the fluctuating activity levels of security counselors, and more importantly, the fact that we've lost one security counselor and gained 3 more. When security council membership shifts in such a way, it's usually prudent to update the line of succession, especially since 2 out of the 3 new security counselors were delegate and vice delegate respectively. The line of succession prior to this recent update was not updated for quite some time. Fiji has a question. And an update was almost supposed to.
You mentioned the Spring into Action endotarding and Security Counselor event that you intend will take place near the start of the next term. Since the North Pacific is guaranteed to have a new delegate, there will naturally be a transitionary period between delegacies, during which time security counselors are not allowed to seek additional endorsements. How do you see the SC event affecting the transition, and will the event be delayed in the case that the transition takes longer than expected?
So if anyone listening would like details as to this event, a link to the dispatch is included in both my weekly Vice Delegate report for the last week and in my campaign platform. This event was actually initially designed to not interfere with potential transitions and to focus more on collective regional endorsements and individual TN-peer endorsements rather than boosting the Security Council and the delegate. My logic there was that we have the WADP, yes, PG posted a link, thank you. We have the WADP, we have alerts, we have constant game site advocate promotion that ensures that the delegate, vice delegate, and Security Council maintain high passive endorsement gain. The event itself can easily be retooled with some minor wording and tracking changes to promote the new delegate. As vice delegate, if I win re-election, I will be an incumbent. I'll already be in the number 2 position, perhaps should the incoming delegate and I agree to it, and should we decide it prudent, I may hold the in-game seat for a few weeks as the transition finishes. I see this event as something that the Security Council can pull out early next term to boost the transition by offering the region concrete rewards for endorsing the delegate, and to a lesser extent the vice delegate, with some minor changes there. I don't see this event interfering with the transition, and I don't believe that the Security Council will need to actively reduce their endorsements until the very final stages of the transition. My reasoning there is that none of the current delegate candidates have Security Council levels of endorsements. The highest is Robespierre, who I believe is in the mid to high 800s at this point. And even that isn't exactly close to the Security Council. So this event will serve to boost the delegate up, and it'll serve to maintain and improve our region's overall endotarting activity. But the focus of the Security Council's endorsement counts were neither a focus of the event initially, nor will they be should it be updated for the transition. Yeah, he has 845 right now.
Yes. Robespierre asks, as a sort of follow-up to Fiji's question, you'll undoubtedly be tasked the oversight on a delegate transition early on in the upcoming term. What actions will you take as vice delegate to ensure that this transition goes as smoothly as possible? What methods have you found helpful for slimming down transitional times, since you yourself had a quick transition and so did McMastodonia back in January?
For an idea of what the transition will look like, you can consult the thread I made to keep track of our progress during the January transition. It's currently in the Security Council in the Security Council public archives on the regional forum. I can link it in the channel after this town hall is finished. So I'll reuse what methods worked so well during that last transition, which in total I believe took 13 days, which is incredibly brief compared to the prior two transitions, which each dragged on for potentially months. I will use this transition will undoubtedly be simplified compared to the prior two, especially the last one, because I will already be in the number 2 position, so it's simply a matter of increasing the delegates' endorsement counts, and I won't need to split my attention on who we're promoting regionally. The delegate will be the sole focus of endorsement gain during the transition. From the delegate, I would, of course, expect consistent endorsement activity, preferably daily. This transition won't really work unless the delegate does their part. However, I believe that all of the current candidates are competent and committed to doing their part to ensure they attain the in-game seat in a smooth and reliable fashion. I will use frequent alerts in dispatch and telegram form to advertise endorsing the delegate to the wider region. I'll likely pin an alert dispatch for whoever the delegate ends up being to the World Factbook entry and ask the game site advocates to promote endorsing the delegate specifically during the transition period. I'll work with the delegate to find any avenues within the executive for promoting their endorsement counts. This could include something similar to what we did last term with Delegate McMastodonia, where we used the Ministry of Home Affairs to run targeted recruitment lists at TNPers to endorse the delegate and vice delegate. The very first thing that I will do when it comes to the transition is create a list of keepers of the North who are not currently endorsing the delegate and send them a personalized targeted telegram asking them to endorse the delegate. Keepers of the North are by definition active endotarders. They're aware of happenings in the region, and ensuring that all keepers of the North are endorsing the delegate will immediately boost their endorsement count. I also, as I mentioned previously, intend to employ the Endotarding Security Council event to further advertise the delegate, provide concrete rewards for advertising, endorsing the delegate, and for simply increasing the region's endorsements in aggregate. After all of this is said and done, the delegate will still likely be a few dozen endorsements short of the in-game seat. This is simply because we have a large churn of nations by virtue of being a theater who are created, join the World Assembly, see the WADP, endorse the delegate, perhaps the vice delegate, perhaps the Security Council, then go inactive in CTE 28 days later. At that point, it'll simply be a matter of continuing consistent advertising, not exhausting our resources when it comes to cards, since at that point it will simply be endorsement churn that eventually propels the delegate to the in-game seat, and consistent advertising, telegrams, and promotion on the RMB regarding endorsing the delegate. Once the delegate is nearing the Security Council should stop endotarding to allow the delegate to accrue enough endorsements to surpass them. Once the delegate is right behind me in terms of endorsement counts, we'll likely use the NPA. Very unlikely will employ foreign military forces, but obviously that's a last resort. And I'll let my own endorsements decline as the NPA pushes the delegate into the in-game seat. So it'll simply be a standard transition with additional elements that I found have worked and new elements that I think will work very well. Obviously, being an incumbent vice delegate will be a huge advantage here, since, as I said, the region's attention will not need to be divided and our advertising will not need to be split between the vice delegate and the delegate. Therefore, our sole focus in the Security Council and in terms of advertising targeted at the region will be to prop up the delegates' endorsement counts. I don't actually believe that it's worthwhile for the Security Council to cease all endotarding activity until the delegate surpasses them, since every delegate candidate currently still has some ways to go before they are at Security Council endorsement levels. And Security Councilors only need to cease endotarding activity when it comes to being in front of the vice delegate, not the delegate. So it's quite likely that I'll simply do everything I can to increase the elected delegates' endorsement counts until they are at or near the Security Council, and then look for ways to mildly depress my own endorsements and the Security Council's endorsements to give the elected delegate an easier time attaining this seat in an orderly fashion.
What do you believe is one advantage that you have over your competition that is being wrong?
The primary advantage, I would say, is that I have served as vice delegate for the prior term, and I am currently on the Security Council. As an incumbent, I have both the in-game tools, the knowledge of my out-of-game tools, and the experience built up over the prior term to effectively handle what needs to be handled immediately during the next term, specifically the transition, ongoing projects, and finishing declassification. As an incumbent vice delegate, I already know what works, I already have a good handle on what doesn't work, and I believe that the region has seen what I can do when it comes to fulfilling the core competencies of the office. Additionally, I have several new ideas and initiatives I intend to roll out during the next term, both ambitious and more moderated. So I would characterize myself as an incumbent who also brings something new to the table.
All right, everyone, thanks for coming. I hope this town hall answered some of your questions about Cretox's campaign and will help prepare you for the election to come.
Well, it was a pleasure to be here and talk to you all and answer your questions.